Welcome to the MultiCultural Mindset broadcast. Your host is Dr. Laverne Hanes Collins, a licensed professional counselor, award-winning trainer, and keynote speaker. Dr. Collins is the author of Overlooked: Counselor Insights for the Unspoken Issues in Black American Life. Dr. Collins has also been a featured monthly columnist in the American Counseling Association's Counseling Today magazine with her Honoring Diversity column. Now, here's Dr. Collins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Multicultural Mindset. And as you know, we're exploring topics of race and faith and culture from the standpoint of how we can decolonize our work, how we can take responsibility for the way in which we engage with the people whom we serve. And I'm just delighted to have you back again today. I'm Laverne Collins, your host. Thank you for joining in. And today we have part two of an amazing, wonderful conversation begun with my two guests on how school counselors can be more effective in school settings with diverse student populations, students of diverse backgrounds. And what's the role of counselors in promoting equity and inclusion? So if you missed last week's episode, I want you to go back, catch last week's episode. That'll catch you up to where we are today. And I promise you, you will not regret going back and watching last week's episode, because these two guests that I have are both experienced. They have a wealth of knowledge as school counselors. They've worked with a wide range of age groups and academic levels and types of schools. Lisa Gooden is here, and she has worked primarily in schools in the northern states and Northeast. And Kim Lilly is here. She's worked mainly in schools in the Southeast part of the United States. So we are talking about the students' needs. We're talking about disparities. We're talking about biases. We're talking about a whole host of things that affect students' success and psychosocial development. So I'm going to dive right in. You introduced yourselves last week. I won't have you go through the entire introduction again, but you all are, both of you, really, as I said, so wealthy in knowledge about school counseling and students' needs. I want to start today's episode with this question. What role do you believe that family engagement and perhaps other community partnerships play in helping to ensure that students who are Black or Hispanic actually get the mental health supports that they need? Is there a place for collaboration, or is that more harmful than helpful? And there's no right or wrong answer to that. I just want to get a dialogue and get your opinions on the role of family and community supports in working with students. So, Lisa, would you like to start?
Yeah. So let me start with this statement, and I've always believed this, and I've heard this years ago, and it stays in my heart and in my mind. Parents are a child's first and most influential teachers. They are the first people that a child will learn from, and they are the most influential people a child will ever see and pick up cues from. And then the next realm of people that they see are the folks that they are introduced to in their community, in their extended family, and in their community, and then it becomes a school. Unfortunately, what happens in a lot of instances, though, in some communities, is that when kids enter the school, it's almost like some parents will say, okay, they're in your school now they're your responsibility. I'm going home to do whatever I do, and you take them on, and I'll be back to pick them up at 3:00 and I'll take them up from there. But between 8 and 3, it's up to you. Mm-hmm. And to get parents to understand how important for all of us to be a part of this child's life together as a team, because what you've put into this child, I have no clue. And what I experience with this child, you have no clue. And if we don't do this together, this child will have a disconnected experience in life. So it is vital that we work together. All of the people who have any type of communication with this child should be on the same team. Now, then it becomes to me the role of the adults to say, how do we work together to do that? And that's where it becomes obviously a lot more difficult, because the part that's hard is getting adults to talk to one another around the benefit of a child so that we can make sure this child has the best experience to become a better citizen in our country. Now, in the Hispanic communities that I've worked in, they do have a very tight network. Their churches are very influential. If they go to a school that is a predominantly Hispanic school, there is community in that school. The parents are in the school. They go there for all kinds of programs. I've worked in Hispanic schools, predominantly Hispanic schools, where there are language classes that take place. So parents come in to learn English. The parish will come over and feed the kids and have services. There are lots of things that can go on in the schools because there is a different sense of community. There's a different sense of community, especially if there are families where they are first generation in this country. If they are immigrants, there is a sense of safety and security with each other. And so they work really hard to make sure that all of the needs are met within that group. It is very different when the school is predominantly African American or Black. It's different. We don't have that same energy. It is not just about, it's neighborhood based. If it's a neighborhood school, it may be a little better, but if it is not a neighborhood based school, it's a very different dynamic. You will find a lot more city social services, county services that may be helpful, but predominantly the school has to bear the brunt of what needs to take place for those kids, and we have to find our own resources. We can ask for parent support. You may get some, but it is not consistent. That has been my experience in the different school settings that I have been in. And let me clarify something, because I don't want it to sound like, in the African American community, parents don't want to be involved and there's not collaboration. There absolutely is, right? It's just that, when we talk about parents in the African American community and we talk about the collaboration with our kids, we're always working from the aspect of we have to first get through the idea of dealing with a problem. We're not always talking about it from the perspective of, let's figure out how we as a group get together and come together and create something that will build on the strengths of the kids that we have and the strengths of us as a collective so that we can move our kids forward. It's always based on some need that was that was there, and some deficit that was in place, and not a strength that could be built on. Whereas when we talk about the Hispanic, it's always our strength is our community. And so we build on that strength. And we have to begin to always look for the strength in each other so we can always build on that. And that's what, will make that sense of community and collaboration stronger for kids in schools and putting us all together. That's what I really wanted to get to.
Yeah, I love that. You spoke of not focusing on deficits, but building on strengths, and whatever the cultural strengths may be. Build on cultural strengths. Yeah, thank you for that.
I was thinking about the collaboration, and I believe collaboration is extremely important. It's about investment. Now, the first thing I think about is Black and brown kids have already been experienced from society that they have less value. That's the message that society has given. That there is less value. It's communicated in very subtle ways sometimes. It's when you walk in the store and no one speaks to you. It's or when you walk in the store and someone follows you because they think you may take something. So it's communicated over and over again. So the collaboration is about investment. So when we come together and collaborate, we are communicating value. So the investment then communicates value. You are valuable. You are worthy. You are important. And what does that lead to in the student? Confidence. So this is why I believe collaboration is critical. One, because we need each other, a team approach to come together. Now, within this collaboration, I believe the student should be right there at the table. It is critical that the student is not only there to witness the investment, but to communicate his or her needs.
You're giving that student voice, which is empowering in and of itself. And in terms of like confidence, what you're saying is that that student knows that not only does his voice matter, but that there's a whole team of people who care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's being modeled. So there's this modeling that's taking place because they are seeing advocacy. And there's this, and it's for them. This team is coming together for that person. So, I think collaboration is critical. It takes a village. I believe that, stand on that. It takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
And I think that has to happen at different levels, though. Like it has to happen at the elementary level. It definitely has to happen like middle school level and high school level. It has to happen at every single level.
Yes.
And it has to be more people engaged in that process at every level, because it takes lots of people to get a kid from kindergarten to graduation. And in a school, your goal is to get a kid to graduation, right? That's your primary goal. And if everybody isn't engaged at the table through that whole process, it makes a huge difference in how they get there.
And if every child is not valued, who comes to the table? Am I coming to the table just for this group of kids because I see their bright future? Or am I willing to come to the table for all students? And I think that's where the discrepancy is. That's where the disparity is, because some have this value because of their color of their skin, and some are devalued because of the color of their skin. Some opportunities are available because of the color of their skin, and some are not. Or, even when we look at diagnosis, behavior, this child has this. But like you said, earlier in our previous episode, is that there is something underneath it, but are we paying attention to it? It might look like I can't focus and concentrate. Doesn't necessarily mean that I have a ADHD. I may not be able to focus and concentrate because I am anxious and I'm worried and I'm concerned about some things that are happening. Maybe bills that cannot be paid, or I don't have lights on at home.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. Children bring anxiety and tension from home into the school building with them. They don't have the ability to take that off and say, okay, well, take off all the stuff going on at home now and let me focus on my schoolwork. They don't have the ability to compartmentalize. Adults don't even really have the ability to compartmentalize that well. We bring our home stuff to work and we find ourselves irritable at work, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. How do you get past parental distrust of schools to build that connection and collaboration? I know not all parents are distrusting of schools,
Mhm.
but parents who have a history of a marginalized experience or who are afraid or who fear that their children are going to be judged or labeled or that they're going to be judged for their parenting can be very, very mistrusting. And sometimes that's a trauma response too, because trauma undermines trust.
Mhm.
How do you, or what are your suggestions for building relationships with with parents?
One of the things that was important for me and in school counseling is including parents in conversations. So sometimes when I would meet with a student and the student was okay with it, I would include the parent because the parent is interested because it is about their child, and then building that relationship with respect and honor. I think Lisa said in our previous session that, or even in this one, that the parent is the first um, is the first teacher, right? So I think it's important to help build that value by recognizing that with that parent, by saying, expressing that value, recognizing who they are. Sometimes people don't know their value. And so I think as a counselor, we have to be encouraging, not just to, it's interesting. It's not just to the student, but even to the parent. Not
Mhm.
only do we see the student, right? We talked about that. We see the parent.
Mhm.
We see
Yeah.
the parent. How do I see the parent?
Yeah.
By encourage, I see you. I
Mhm.
know you have a lot on your plate. You are
Mhm.
trying to be here for your student, but you're also working, and you're working, maybe hours where your student has to be alone. I see the weight. I want to
Mhm.
acknowledge the weight. I want to acknowledge the effort.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
believe that when we see the parent,
Mhm.
because the parent, just like the student, is hungry to be seen in
Mhm.
a world that ignores and invalidates your experience. I believe if the counselor will see the parent, the relationship is going to be built. It's going to open the door so that collaboration, again, if you show me that you really care, I might be open to you instead of being so quick to label or diagnose or point out what's not right. Maybe if you point out what's right about my child, I find that to be so encouraging when I would work with parents and I would say, "Oh my gosh, I love your child. He is so smart. Let me tell you what he told me or shared, let me show you the work or something, like some connector so that parent can feel like, wow, my child, yes, you're doing something right, mom. You're
Yeah,
doing something right, dad.
yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
Those types of things build relationships. And the next thing you know, you have that collaboration because that parent trusts you just like that child does.
Mhm.
they don't feel like they've been called in to be attacked.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Lisa,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I
Anything to
think
add there?
what Kim said is spot on. It's just spot on. You know, if a kid is sitting in front of you, let's call your parent so they can hear what so they can be a part of what we're talking about. Because they have to do, because everything doesn't happen in the school anyway, right? A lot of what gets carried out is at home. They only spend so much time in the school. A lot of their time is at home. They have to be able to carry out a lot of this stuff at home. So we need each other to make these things work. You need each other to make it work. So it takes everybody to be on the same page to make things work for the child. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you both. Now, here's my last question in this, well, maybe my last. We'll see. What strategies, what policies do you recommend? Because we were talking about mental health equity in schools. What do you recommend to help ensure that schools that serve Black and Brown children are prioritized, that their mental health is given proper attention? And how do we even measure success of any strategies or policies? And I'm talking, when I say policies, obviously county level, district level, school board, or maybe even just the building. What kinds of things are being missed in terms of opportunities? Something actionable for systemic change. What comes to mind for you?
So I could tell you the biggest thing that comes to mind for me. The American School Counseling Association recommends that the ratio of student to counselor is 250 to 1. In the state of Michigan, just last year, the average across the state was 573 students to a counselor.
Wow.
So there is no way on earth you could ever provide the appropriate level of support to a child that they need when you are talking about ratios like that. So you want to talk about a real policy, let's talk about numbers and ratios that are realistic and reasonable so that a child does not have to feel like they don't even have access to the support that they need when it comes to mental health or emotional support or any type of support as it relates to them becoming, feeling like they're being treated with reasonable, some level of reasonable support. I'm sorry, it makes me emotional just thinking about it. Like, how do you even justify that to be a thought when it comes to the raising of a kid? And then you're talking about trying to create a citizen that is ready to face the issues of the world when you have not even given them a good baseline to start from. Like, that to me is like, that's just poor use of resources. That is a poor use of resources. If you can't even meet the basic standard, and to me, 250 is too much, but I still say, if you can't even meet a basic standard of 250 to 1, we have a real problem in our education system, a real problem. Let's at least do that much for our kids.
Yeah. So we've got to make the caseload, so to speak, for school counselors reasonable. That means we have to invest more money in the school counseling programs for staffing. Yeah, for staffing. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Absolutely. That my heart when Lisa said that, I'm gonna be very honest with you. I was responsible for over 700 students. Me, then assigned 2 classes to teach in addition to all of those students. And I struggled. Now I had great relationships with students, but when I tell you, I constantly was behind trying to get all of the paperwork and this done and that done. And then what happens is you have counselors that do care, but they're so stressed because of all the requirements that things that have to get done. You might be sitting with a student and you want to give them your full attention, and you're sitting there thinking, I have 50 phone calls plus all of this stuff to return and all of these, it's too much. And then you wonder why so many school counselors are coming out of the profession. Coming out, good ones coming out.
Yeah.
Because it is so overwhelming. And so that is a policy. I just wanted to say amen, amen, amen. That's something that needs to be corrected.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no idea that the ratios were that outrageous. I thank you for exposing that. And I dare to say this, is it, are the ratios different depending on the tax base of the school feeding zone?
Yes. Yes. So I'm giving you that's a state average across all districts, right? Of course, it's slanted according to the tax base, because if the tax base doesn't exist in the district, that means that the property taxes in those districts make it up. But if there are no, if the property taxes are not there, then guess what? You know,
Yeah.
And depending on the state, right, the child allocation is equal. It's not equitable. It's equal. Right? So if you live in a poor district, your kid's getting 8,000, just like if you live in a rich district, the kid's getting 8,000. But if the parents in this district can supplement, they can afford to pay for it. That doesn't happen over here. That 8,000 doesn't go as far over here as it does over here. So equal student allocation is always, it's just an inappropriate way to look at how we utilize state funding. Equity is what's needed if we're ever going to have an even playing field for students who are in lower socioeconomic communities. It has to be equitable.
Yeah. So when you speak of equity, you're talking about provision that meets the need and is more than just equal provision. Everybody gets $2, when this child might need $4.
Right.
And the tax base only supports one.
Right.
$1. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So you're talking, it's based on need and
need.
not percentages and straight percentages or something. Yeah. Or straight dollar amounts. Yeah, I got you.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. Once again, our time goes so fast, but once again, you two have been phenomenal. You have given insight. I have learned a lot, and I am sure that our audience has learned a lot. I can't thank you both enough, Lisa Gooden and Kim LIlly, for being our guests, not just for one episode, but for two. And I'm going to remind the audience that if you missed episode 1 last week, go to our YouTube channel and catch episode 1 so you get the background, the first few questions that we asked, and the things that we talked about. Thank you for joining me, Lisa and Kim. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone else who has tuned in. Before I sign off, I'm just going to ask you, Lisa and Kim, if you have any closing words for perhaps our fellow counselors, and especially those who work in schools. What would you say to encourage people who work in schools?
I would just say, if you are in school counseling, I pray that it's your passion, because the kids that I support, they are worth every moment that I spend doing this work. And this has just been one of the best careers that I could have ever selected. And I'm just so happy to do this work every day.
Thanks, Lisa. Kim?
And I would encourage you to truly see the kids. I mean, just, see the students, see the parents. Don't assume. Take time to ask questions, get to know your students. Love opens the door to truth, and if you want to be able to give truth and encourage, support, you've got to show the students that you care. When you show them that you care, that you love them, everything else is pretty easy, because now they're open to you. So take the time to build those relationships, because they are all about relationships.
As you said earlier, see them, hear them, understand them, celebrate them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. Remember, everybody, creating a safe space means validating a person's entire self, including their cultural identities or their racial or ethnic identities. So we're going to continue this journey, as I always say, toward cultural relevance, cultural sensitivity, cultural humility. We're going to continue it together, one step at a time. As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, love, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might benefit. I'm Laverne Hanes Collins, signing off, and until next time, keep practicing with empathy, humility, and a multicultural mindset. Bye for now.
Mhm.